Yes, I'm excited about starting too. Sorry it's late. My name is Ronald Kendall, and I'm the president of the MJC Forensics team. Now, I know everybody's eager to be here today because we just all love public speaking, and not because it's a class requirement, yeah. So, no matter what reason you're here, we're hoping to provide you with a pleasurable experience today. So let's get on with the show. Without further ado, please join me in welcoming our Director of Forensics, Dr. Charlie Ewing.
Thank you, and welcome to Speech Night again. And I'd like to say a few words before we start the actual performances, because one of the questions I get almost every week is, why is it called forensics, as in forensic team? Well, it's not like Quincy. We don't cut up cadavers, but we do look for evidence to use in speeches and debates, and then we present that evidence in the form of a debate or a speech in front of a judge who renders a decision as to who does the best speaking or who wins the debate. The word forensic means literally of matters to be adjudicated or placed before a judge for a decision. So there are forensic medicine, which Quincy did, and there's forensic ballistics, which studies bullets and things like that, and they all aim to bring something before a judge. So forensic speech, we compete before judges, and that's the origin of that. I hope that clears that up for some people. This campus has one of the longest histories of forensics competition in California. In my office, I have a poster dated 1926. It says, resolved, the United States should adopt a parliamentary type of government, a debate. Modesto High School, Friday night, UC Berkeley versus Modesto Junior College, admission 25 cents. And in the 1930s, this campus was part of the California Debate League. They governed all of the speech competition at that time. And about 1934, the coaches and professors involved in debate competition made a strange decision. They said from now on, all the debates in California will not have a winner declared after the debate. The judges would sit and listen and then do a critique after the debate, but never tell anyone who won or lost. And the reason was, in the last 4 years prior to that date, Modesto Junior College teams had never lost a single debate, and they were tired of losing to us. With that tradition, I had a tough job to fill when I came here 11 years ago, but I think we're doing okay. The MJC Forensic Speech Team wins more trophies than any other team on this campus, about 150 to 175 trophies per year. And we do this in heads-up competition with other community colleges, of course, but we also compete in the same level with Berkeley, Stanford, Chico, San Francisco State. All of the universities in California compete against us also, and we generally beat them. We outscore them in tournament competition. This year we've won 3 sweepstakes trophies, and we're headed for more. We have a good team. It's a novice team this year, but they compete very, very well. And to introduce that team that has put in time and commitment to making this performance good for you and to represent you well in competition, I'd like for you to welcome my co-director of forensics, Dr. Jim Salman.
Thanks, Charlie. I've been here for about 3 years at Modesto Junior College, and I've really enjoyed working with the team. It's kind of fun being in the classroom and seeing students progress in the different speeches they give. But when you work with the forensics team, you see people really make some huge changes over the course of the year. So it's fun to see that happen. I want to introduce to you the members of our speech team. First of all, the president of the speech team, Mr. Ronald Kendall. Next, we have Yesenia Artiega. Jessica Bogard. Diane Coriel. Mike Karima. Tina Nishaw. And Susie Mashad. This is our 2002 spring 2002 speech team. Represents us very well, and we hope to put on a good show tonight. A couple of things you ought to know, too. In addition to the competitions that they go to, we've also been involved with putting on our own tournaments. Last fall, for example, we hosted the high school tournament called the Pirates Invitational, and some of you may have even judged at some of those events. We had approximately between 200 and 300 high school students from around the state come and compete in a variety of events, including debate and individual events. We also had, obviously, several judges from our own college classrooms involved with that, so a lot of people involved. We also have hosted the college tournament in the spring. This year it was held at Cal State Hayward, but we directed that, and we have the colleges from around the state and sometimes even out of state come and compete. So we have a pretty extensive schedule throughout the year. We just came back from our recent tournament and ended up with a third place in sweepstakes, which is the overall result. And this weekend we are starting our championship series. We're competing at Chico State in the Northern California Forensics Association Championship. So I hope that they'll do well this weekend. So let's get started. We're going to have the informative speech to start us off tonight. And to describe what happens in the informative speech, we have Yesenia Artiega.
The informative speech is an event where competitors have a maximum of 10 minutes to inform the audience of an interesting, significant, and valuable topic. The speech is typically memorized and can involve the use of a visual aid. The informative speaker is aimed to be clear, well-organized, and deliver their speeches in a conversational and energetic style. Hopefully our next speaker will do so. Give a warm welcome to Vince Jamison.
In Florida, a social worker says when she hears music, she also sees objects.
Gold balls and vertical lines hovering about 6 inches from her nose. According to a psychologist in North Carolina, angel food cake tastes pink. And in Taiwan, a young linguist explains how the vibrations of a saxophone causes him to see a writhing mass of neon purple snakes. No, these people are not human kaleidoscopes, nor are they LSD-enhanced psychedelic love-ins. While most of us experience the world through our normal segregated senses, for some of us, 2 or more sensations are commingled together. This unique condition is called synesthesia. The name originates from the Greek root syn, meaning together, and aesthesis, meaning perception or sensation. So literally the definition is to hear or smell shapes or taste. Now, to better understand it, let's explore the effects, causes, and treatments of synesthesia. Scientists have only recently begun to unravel the mysteries around it. According to estimates from Dr. Grossenbacher, one of the foremost researchers on synesthesia, he estimates that approximately 1 in 300 people have this condition. And who's most likely to have it? Well, according to studies done in the New Scientist, August 14th, 1994, the most people that have synesthesia are left-handed women. In fact, studies in Britain have shown that for every male synesthete, there are 6 females. So how does synesthesia play out in everyday life? Well, according to Michael Tork, an elderly Englishman, synesthesia makes life more rich, especially when reading literature. Mike says on top of getting the usual entertainment out of the book, he also enjoys the world of colors, shapes, and tastes at the same time while reading. Michael's testimony is very similar to that of Mike Morrow's testimony. Mike's just a down-to-earth, regular guy who's a computer programmer in Arkansas. But when it comes to music, Mike's not that fond of classical because he says when he hears the sound of a full orchestra, visions of gray, mushy oatmeal appear before his eyes. On the other hand, when listening to the sharp, clean sounds of electronic music, Mike says that he sees green pyramids coming out of the ground. Yes, it does sound a little bit strange. But when Mike was asked if he could choose whether to retain this unusual condition or not, he said, "I love it. Losing it would be like losing one of my senses." However, life is not all a bed of roses for Mike, because in the case of a single clear, really loud sound, such as the emergency broadcast tone, Mike says that everything turns bright orange and he can barely see, which can be dangerous while driving. However, not everyone would choose to retain this phenomenon if they were given the choice. In 1968, A.R. Lurie, a Soviet psychologist, interviewed a patient, Solomon Shrinsky, who gave the following testimony about his jumbled perceptions. He said, "I walked over to the ice cream vendor and asked her what flavor she had. 'Tutti Frutti,' she said, but she answered in such a way that a whole pile of coals, black cinders, came bursting out of her mouth, and he couldn't bring himself to buy any ice cream." Solomon went on to say that some people's voices are like a bouquet of flowers, and the more they talk, the more interested he gets in their voice, until he can't understand what's being said. This is a strange condition, and possibly someone here has experienced it in a milder form some way. For some people, simply the chords of a guitar may produce a tingling sensation down the leg, or a high-pitched noise may cause a rumbling sensation in the back of the head or neck. Now, scientists are conducting much research and examination to find out exactly why synesthesia happens. We've explored the effects, but now let's look at the causes that instigate it. When doing this, we must differentiate between voluntary synesthesia and involuntary synesthesia. There's actually a big difference. Voluntary synesthesia is what we all have. It's just associating two things together, such as sight with sounds or smell with taste. This usually happens every time we go into Carl's Jr. You smell the hamburger and you're hungry. This is associating two things together. Well, the Journal of Cross-Cultural Psychology conducted an international experiment about this phenomenon, and the outcome was absolutely amazing. All participating countries correlated the feeling of anger with red and black, while the cross-cultural differences were Germans associated envy primarily with yellow, but for Americans, it was associated with yellow, green, black, and the green-eyed monster. Now, we must remember that this is a voluntary experience, and this does not happen without them choosing to create it. Involuntary synesthesia, which is true synesthesia, happens, and the patient does not determine it to happen. It just happens involuntarily. Scientists are conducting much research to find out exactly why this happens, and one tentative theory is that all infants under the age of 6 months have involuntary synesthesia. But normally, as the human brain develops, the multisensory linkages die off and the senses become segregated. However, once again, Dr. Grossenbacher offers a slightly different view. He says that in all brains, input runs from single senses into a multisensory region, and then there's backward routes that go back again. However, for most of us, those backward routes are inhibited. But for synesthetes, they have an uncommonly strong backward route that pulls the senses backwards, and so you might almost call it cross-wiring. Hallucinogenic drugs produce almost the same effect, which suggests in Dr. Grossenbacher's opinion that synesthesia can be experienced by anyone, but is usually only experienced by few. There are many things that we do not know about synesthesia, but one thing we do know for sure is that it's hereditary. In a study conducted by Dr. Richard Siddewick, he cited one family who had one continuous synesthete in 4 generations. Another family had 4 continuous synesthetes out of 5 siblings in the same generation. Carol Stein, a New York artist and synesthete, remembers on one occasion when she was having dinner with her family, she mentioned that the number 5 was yellow. Her father immediately corrected her and said it was instead yellow ochre. However, after this experience, Steen's father refused to discuss his problem again, his unusual condition. And this attitude of denial is very common in many synesthetes. Some worry that they are mentally ill, but they are not. However, for Carol Stein, it's a whole different ballpark. She is using her amazing artistic talent to replicate her synesthetic experiences in her paintings. For instance, for Stein, when she hears the doorbell ringing, she sees this intricate set of triangles. So when she hears the sound, that's what she sees. And when out on her morning walk, when she hears a dog bark, Stein always sees a circle with another smaller, darker circle in the middle, depending on the size of the dog and the different types of barking. Now, scientists are also looking for treatments to help those who have problems with synesthesia. Some people do not have problems, but some do. UC San Diego conducted an experiment where they had a field of 2s with a triangle of 5s in the middle. Now, for most of us, it's hard to find the triangle of 2s in the field of 5s. However, for synesthetes, they see a different color for 2 over the color for 5. And so they're able to spot the triangle immediately. The test did help in finding the causes of synesthesia, but no treatments have yet been found. But the diligent search continues. In closing, Dr. Harry Whitaker from the Neuropsy ND stated that synesthesia is accepted as an absolute real phenomena by the entire neurological community. But he adds, it does strain the imagination. How can people hear sounds, or hear shapes, and taste sounds? That's a good point, but I'm sure that you would agree with me after exploring the effects, causes, and treatments of synesthesia that it truly is a unique neurological condition in which few people have the opportunity to experience. Thank you.
Prose interpretation is an event in which competitors have a maximum of 10 minutes to perform an excerpt from a short story, a book, or a play. Because competitors are interpreting, not acting, they are allowed to carry a binder with the printed text along with them. Although they're allowed to move, they are not allowed to take any steps. And tonight, Ms. Susie Machado will give us an example of prose interpretation.
When I moved from Ohio to Arkansas, I considered it a blessing. But after living up north all my life, I was ready for a change. My house had burnt down. My husband, well, he left me. And my very existence had disappeared into a black hole. Moving to Arkansas, near my ailing mother, seemed to be a great idea. I had nothing to lose. However, I was not prepared for the gifts I was about to receive. According to Prevention Magazine on November of 2001, there are over 256,000 nursing students in California alone. Nursing is an important, but often underappreciated job. Many of us get our exposure to this profession through popular television shows, but they don't reflect reality. In the following prose interpretation, we will look at some nursing experiences through the eyes of real nurses, with selections from Chicken Soup for the Nurse's Soul by some of New York Times best-selling authors, and contributions by nurses on the You Might Be a Nurse If website. I was very grateful to land a job right away at a Christian hospital working on surgical floors. Then one day, I was sent to oncology. I protested to deaf ears, You will work where you are needed, they told me. I thought it was dreadful. I could feel death everywhere, and my heart felt so healthy. But day after day, I was sent to the cancer floor. I will solemnly pledge myself before God and in the presence of this assembly to pass my life in purity and to practice my profession faithfully. You might be a nurse if you've ever told a patient he didn't need to be dead to donate an organ. To my amazement, after a while, I began to need to work on that floor. One day, I stood among my babies and realized that God had sent me here. This was my home. My patients were no longer room numbers. They had faces, names. I knew what they liked to eat, how many children they've had, at what job they had spent most of their life working, and how they felt about having cancer. I will abstain from whatever is deleterious and mischievous, and will not take or knowingly administer any harmful drug. You might be a nurse if you believe that air goes in and out, blood goes round and round, and any variation of this is a bad thing. As with many nurses, I became close to these very special patients. I loved each and every one of them. Yes, at times it was difficult keeping my emotions in check. Then one day, a patient named Billy came to the floor. He was a large man with bone cancer, but a great sense of humor. Though he was in great pain, he rarely complained. Oh, and his loving wife, she watched over him with the greatest love any one of us can imagine, and made certain he received the best care possible. We all laughed together and cried together, shared family stories and jokes. They became part of our hospital family. I will do all in my power to maintain and elevate the standard of my profession, and will hold in confidence all personal matters committed to my keeping, and all family affairs coming to my knowledge in the practice of my calling. And you might be a nurse if you believe the more equipment you see on a nurse's belt, the newer they are. After coming in for chemo treatments and going back home several times, Billy's energy was spent. The last time he was admitted, he looked so beaten. So did his wife. He was suffering so much that we knew there was nothing much more we can do. He was now terminal, and his pain was so intense that no amount of medicine helped. I think every nurse cried for Billy and his family. With loyalty will I endeavor to aid the physician in his work and devote myself to the welfare of those committed to my care. You might be a nurse if you believe you can't hear stupid. One night, near the end of my shift, I made my last trip down the hallway and peeked in on Billy. I opened the door to his room very slowly so I wouldn't wake him. The light from the hall just shone into his room and just lit it up like moonlight. I looked towards the bed and a little gasp escaped from my mouth. But there was Billy, lying on his back, the position I knew was most painful for him. Next to him lay his wife, nestled in the pit of his arm, curled up like a baby deer next to its mother. She was sleeping so soundly I could hear little whistles coming from her mouth. I stood there like an intruder. My feet just would not move. As I tried to leave, Billy opened his eyes. He smiled a crooked smile and winked at me as if to say, "It's okay." You might be a nurse if you hide on Thursday nights so you don't have to translate all the terms from ER for your friends and family. I closed the door, walked up the now empty hallway, and went to the chapel. I cried a few minutes, and then I thanked God for blessing me with this very special moment. Billy, he died soon after that night, but not before he gave me new eyes and a special goodbye gift. You might be a nurse if you believe all people will eventually die, no matter what we do.
Impromptu speaking is an event where competitors have a total of 7 minutes to both prepare and give a speech. Topics come from a variety of sources, including famous quotations, abstract concepts, famous artists, and so on. And speakers in this event are also given time signals to let them know how much time is remaining. So what will happen is that as soon as the topic is chosen and the speaker gets ready to start writing down some ideas, the timekeeper will start clicking the time and say, well, 30 seconds used, 1 minute used, and so on, and lets them know how much time they have remaining to both prepare and give that speech. To do that tonight, we have Tina Neshaw, who's going to be sitting out in front, giving our speakers some time signals and letting him know how much time is remaining. Yeah. Now, before we get started tonight, we need to get some topics from you. And so we'll take some topics from the audience. I have some categories to choose from. Could somebody shout out a human emotion? What? Fear. Okay. Okay, we got fear. Somebody give me a famous movie quotation. I'll be back. Okay. And the third topic, how about an abstract concept? Prostitution, huh? You know, at first I was thinking that I'll be back might be related to fear, but prostitution might be related to I'll be back. I don't know. Just a thought. Okay. Tonight we have as our impromptu speaker someone who started off in this event as a novice and has been working his way through various tournaments, been doing really well, and we have Ronald Kendall doing impromptu speaking. So please give him applause.
Many of us have experienced a time when we're driving along in an older car, of course, and all of a sudden an indicator light comes on. Some people call them dummy lights, idiot lights. It's basically something is possibly wrong. We don't know exactly what it is, unless, of course, you're a mechanic, but it's telling us we've got to check something out. Now, one of our emotions that we have is fear, and that is essentially an indicator light to us that we need to check something out in our lives. I would like to overview or discuss how fear is an indicator light to us as human beings by looking at three basic areas: survival, public speaking, and finally relationships. So the first area, survival. Take driving, for instance. You're driving along and all of a sudden a bunch of people start swerving all over the place, and what do? You feel afraid, okay? This is an indicator light to you that, hey, maybe I need to slow down, maybe I need to back away from this situation. It's a useful tool for us to be able to protect ourselves, to be able to ensure our survival a bit longer. Another example of survival is walking alone in the dark through the streets of Modesto in downtown. Okay, some of you might be able to relate to that. I walk down the streets and it doesn't bother me, but some people do feel the fear. They feel that there might be somebody that's walking across the street that looks kind of funny. They're not quite sure what that person might do. And so they stay away from them. And if that person would do anything bad, then indeed they have protected themselves. They've saved themselves a bit longer. Another area that we experience fear in, and I'm sure everybody here can relate to it in some way or another, is public speaking. Now, I'm assuming that most of you are enrolled in some kind of public speaking class, and it is a fact that public speaking is one of the biggest fears we have over death. We are actually more afraid of public speaking than we are of death, which is pretty interesting. But, and you may have noticed that when I first got up here, I felt like I was possessed by Porky Pig in my stuttering. So yes, talking to a group of 500 people does invoke a little bit of fear. What is it, though, that it's telling us? It's actually telling us something, that we're a bit concerned about what other people think of us, perhaps, but also we don't have the practice, or we're worried about being perfect. And so it's an indicator light that, hey, we do have something to practice on. That's why I enjoy and have participated on the speaking team, is the fact that I have been able to enhance my speaking skills and to overcome a fear of speaking, which is great for me, who was originally a shy person. So we've seen how in public speaking, fear serves as an indicator light for us as people. Let's look at relationships. Now, fear in an interpersonal relationship is a bad thing. I mean, if somebody out there is actually feeling fear in a relationship, I do not envy you. It serves as an indicator light. It's telling us that something is wrong, okay? That there is something about our relationship that we need to deal with, that we need to get away from or find some form of intervention. This is very important because we found that many people have been afraid and they don't get away. They just keep living their lives and they often end up becoming battered or sometimes even killed. This is not good. So if we listen to that indicator light, we listen to that fear, and we do something about it, we become involved and find some form of intervention to protect us from the situation, then we have enhanced our survival. We have enhanced our ability to have relationships a bit longer. So today I've gone over how fear serves as an indicator light to us in survival, in our everyday lives, in public speaking, and finally how fear serves as an indicator light to us in relationships. So the next time you feel afraid, think of it as you driving a car, and all of a sudden that light comes on. Take a moment to analyze, to think about what is it that's really going on here, and do something about it.
Persuasive speaking is the event where the speaker has a maximum of 10 minutes to persuade you, the audience, to believe in and act on a socially significant problem. The speeches are usually memorized and can include visual aids. Within the speech, you'll hear a description of what is harmful, why it hasn't gone away, and possible solutions. Solutions that include you are preferably desirable in this event. So please help me give a warm welcome to Miss Diane Coryell.
She babysat for neighbors and smiled radiantly for pictures, but she also liked to steal things. And finally, in June of 1999, Gina's score was sent to a military-style boot camp by a judge. 5 days after arriving, she and 15 other girls began a mandatory 2.5-mile jog. Now, taking into consideration that Gina was severely overweight, along with the temperature at 95 degrees and humidity at 90%, this was a recipe for disaster. As she went along, Gina began to lag behind, and just short of finishing, she collapsed. Now, several girls recall a supervisor shouting, "Quit faking!" And a staff nurse checked on Gina and said she was simply hyperventilating. Well, a couple hours later, Gina began to walk back to her cottage, but within a few hundred feet, she collapsed again. The staff still thought she was faking, and the camp's director told the staff to wait out Gina, so no one called for an ambulance. Gina lay there on the ground, her eyes rolling back into her head, and her lips turning purple, and no one called for an ambulance. 2 hours later, a couple of physicians happened by and ordered that an ambulance be called. 6 minutes later, paramedics were giving Gina oxygen, but on the way to the hospital, her heart stopped. Her body temperature was at 108 degrees, and internally, she had literally begun to cook. At 12:39 that afternoon, Gina was declared dead. This is one of the deadly instances at these military-style boot camps. Juvenile boot camps should be eliminated. This is not only because they, first, cause emotional disturbance, second, inflict physical harm and kill children, and third, fail to reduce recidivism, all while we have another option available. Now, as I said, these abuses inflicted by camp staff cause dreadful emotional disturbance in child inmates. What South Dakota State Representative Pat Haley found and confirmed through children, staff, and videotapes was that kids in boot camps who were thought to be discipline problems were shackled by their wrists and their ankles to beds or concrete floors, a restraint called four-pointing, sometimes for up to 24 hours a day. Male guards often took part in cutting off the clothes of female inmates who were four-pointed, supposedly to prevent suicide. Also, male guards patrolled the showers, a particularly traumatizing practice for the 75% of female inmates that had been sexually abused as children. You can understand how painful this would be for them. These boot camps seem to run by their own set of degrading rules, and many of the camps still rely on the kind of abusive, veins bulging, in-your-face humiliation that their political sponsors apparently believe is still the norm at real boot camps run by the United States Armed Forces. However, what they don't grasp is the fact that the military realized some years ago that abusive anger and punishment really does not do well to develop team spirit nor mature soldiers. However, child advocates who suggest that shouting and bullying might not work well on abused and troubled kids have been all but drowned out by the boot camp industry's tough love mantra, we must break kids down to build them back up. The November-December 2000 issue of Mother Jones magazine recounts a reply by Paul DeMuro, a corrections expert in New Jersey who has been appointed by the courts to investigate juvenile institutions in over 20 states. DeMuro states, I've heard that one before. It might work well if they're middle-class kids free of deep psychological problems. But for kids who have been abused and neglected, educationally deprived, subjected to summary punishment, it's a disaster waiting to happen. The National Mental Health Association has concluded that tactics of intimidation have proven to be counterproductive for most youth and has led to disturbing incidences of abuse. However, these harms are not only emotional, they are physical as well. The November-December issue of Mother Jones recounts the fact that many of these abuses have been far-reaching and extreme. For example, at the Arizona Boys Ranch, a military-style boot camp, staff made an incontinent 16-year-old boy, Nicholas Contreras, sleep in soiled underwear and eat meals on the toilet. On March 2nd, 1998, Contreras collapsed repeatedly during strenuous physical training, and later that evening, he died from a massive undiagnosed infection. Now, the Los Angeles Times recounts the fact that this specific boys' ranch had sparked nearly 100 complaints of child abuse in the previous 5 years, including reports that one staff member hit one boy in the head with a shovel and burned another with hot water so severely he needed skin grafts. The Arizona kids responded to treatments like these by rioting, slashing themselves with broken light bulbs and shanks, and even trying repeatedly to commit suicide. The Arizona Republic recounts another sort of child abuse, if you will, in which kids were forced to do marches in triple-digit key while wearing black uniforms with a daily diet limited to an apple, a carrot, and a bowl of beans. This was the preceding treatment of Anthony Haynes before he died July 1st, 2001. Witnesses at the camp say that he was forced to stand in the sun for hours, was deprived of water, and made to eat dirt. At least one teenage imprisoned at the camp say that a counselor stomped on his chest and poured mud down his throat. The day Haynes died, the mercury climbed as high as 114 degrees. His mother, Melanie Hudson, said she was told before her son died he had vomited mud. Now, as we can see, this is absolutely despicable and horrible, but it's only one of the instances. That Mother Jones recounts the fact that there have been at least a half dozen other kids that have died in boot camps. And still, numerous state and federal investigations have concluded that there are hundreds of kids that are emotionally and physically abused. Yet there are still approximately 50 military-style camps working out in the United States. Now, why is this allowed to continue? Well, public officials from state to state have concluded that they really don't evidently care about the evidence that is put before them, that most boot camps don't work. It has been found that boot camp graduates are more likely to be rearrested or rearrested more quickly than other offenders. Graduates who really don't do very well in terms of recidivism compared to those who were incarcerated, or in some cases, than those sentenced to regular style supervision. Now, as we take this further, we understand that these boot camps don't do much in terms of recidivism, which is what they are entitled to do. That is their purpose. Instead of funding these abuses that are caused by boot camp staff, we should transfer the money from these boot camps to the California Youth Authority or to the Youth Authority of other states, where the money can be better spent on programming that supports education and takes care of those under its wings. The California Youth Authority's mission statement includes ideas that they support education and recreation, believing that everyone has the ability to change and gives them room to do so. In each of the many programs that are provided by the Youth Authority, there is a core programming of education, recreation, and work experience. This is a far cry from what the boot camp staff members can say for themselves, honestly. So as we've seen, boot camps should be eliminated, not only because they cause emotional disturbance, inflict physical harm, and kill children without reducing recidivism, which is their sheer point, all while we have another option available. So remember Gina Score's horrific story of danger at these deadly military-style boot camps. Thank you.
Those are some of the individual events we do in competition. Another event that we compete in, and very well, is parliamentary debate. Now, some of you may have judged in a high school debate tournament that we have here each September. And is there anyone here who did that? Raise your hand if you did. You may have seen high school debaters reading evidence cards as fast as they can and speaking at such a fast rate that you could not understand what they were saying. That's the way college debate is if we participated in cross-examination debate association style debate. But that's not good communication. And I am a communication educator. So I came up with introduced to California a different kind of debate called parliamentary debate. And in this debate, nobody can read evidence cards as fast as they can because they can't bring any evidence cards into the debate room. In fact, they couldn't research it and have the cards ready if they wanted to because they don't know the topic until 15 minutes before the debates begin. Then they have to sit with their partner, plan their strategies, and in 15 minutes begin the debate. One team, the team you'll see over here, will represent the government party in Parliament, the party in power. And the first speaker and the last speaker will be the Prime Minister. With him will be a member of the government party. On this table will be the loyal opposition party. And the leader of the opposition will speak once and then again in rebuttal. The member of the opposition party will speak one time. Now, the government's task in this debate is to prove the resolution is true and The opposition's task is to prove the resolution is not true or should be rejected by you, members of Parliament. Congratulations, you are all now members of Parliament. I congratulate you on your election and your new calling. During this debate, you might see, while one person is speaking here at the lectern, someone from the other table, whichever the other table is, stand up and say, "Point of information, please." They're allowed to do that. The person who has the floor, who's been granted the floor by the Speaker of the House, couldn't say, "Yes, I'll take your question on that point," or they may say, "Not now, please, sit down." And there's no set number of questions. They don't have to take any questions. They can choose to take all the questions or just some of them, and it's kind of a one-upmanship game. Questions can be used, points of information, for clarification or to undercut the statement by the person at the lectern. For example, if I were speaking to you and I said that the parking here at Modesto Junior College is more than adequate, and someone from the other table said, "Point of information, are you aware that you don't get a parking permit at MJC? What you get is a hunting license." That would undercut that statement completely, right? And that would be points for that side of the debate. And what else do we need to say? Oh, yes, since you are part of Parliament and this is a formal debate in front of Parliament, you are participatory. You're part of the debate. Now, when you watch a basketball game, you applaud and cheer good moves, right? But you can't run out on the field and grab the basketball on the court and throw it somewhere else. But you can encourage things you like and discourage the things you don't like. So in parliamentary debate, the tradition is if you like what the speaker says, you can pound on your armchair there, the armrest, and say, "Hear, hear." Can you do that? Oh, let's hear a real good one. Excellent. Now, if you don't agree with what they're saying, you think it's a really lame statement, then booing is not allowed. That's what the Sergeant of Arms would remove you from Parliament for. That's very rude. But you can do a very serious shame, shame. Can you do a shame, shame for me? Shame, shame. You got it. You're good members of Parliament. No one, hear, hear. No one may address Parliament unless the Speaker of the House grants them that privilege. And for this debate, normally Dr. Jim Solomon acts as Speaker of the House. However, we have a change of program here. Ms. Johnson could not be with us this afternoon. So the person who teaches Speech 107, Introduction to Debate, and 108, Advanced Debate, we're going to see if he can do what he says he teaches. He's going to fill in for Ms. Johnson. And so we're going to have, on the government side, Dr. Jim Solomon and Ronald Kendall. On that side. On this side, with the loyal... Your government? Government on this side. No, wait, you're right. Government over here. Yeah. You're right. On this side, the government. And on this side, representing the loyal opposition, Mr. Vince Jameson once again. Thank you for helping us this afternoon, Vincent. And Ms. Yesenia Artiaga. And I think you saw me do a point of information. They will rise with their hand on their head and gesture toward the speaker. The reason they put their hand up here is because you remember those old days when in Parliament they wore those powdered wigs, and some of the barristers and judges still do in England, the kind of wig that George Washington has on the quarter 25-cent piece. Well, if they stood up too quickly with the point of information without covering their wig, it would fly off. Hence the phrase, "Don't flip your wig." don't jump too quickly. And so, to make this a little more authentic, I'm going to be the Speaker of the House and put on my George Washington wig, and we will commence the debate momentarily.
Thank you, Dr. Speaker. I'd like to thank the members of Parliament for coming to tonight. I'm glad that you're sticking with us and doing all right. We'd like to thank the loyal opposition, who I know will do a very good job tonight. Certainly my teammate, Mr. Kendall, who will be the member of government. And as I said before, the Speaker of the House, thank you for letting me participate in tonight's debate. Mr. Speaker, tonight's topic is this House believes reality TV has socially redeeming qualities. It is a shame that you're not going to be listening to me on this, right? Mr. Speaker, we believe that this is true, and we want to uphold this resolution. We're going to make some definitions, though, to help clarify some of the things that we think are important in tonight's debate. And we're going to define this House as sports fans. Thank you. We'd also further like to say that reality TV will be the live broadcasting of games and other sporting events, and that socially redeeming qualities we would define as of worth to society. We think this offers a fair debate, not only for ourselves, but certainly for the loyal opposition. Tonight, we'd also like to say, how are we going to determine who's going to win tonight's round? And we think that it's important to identify some criteria to determine that. And we think a really good criteria for this is that of transparency. And what I mean by that is, if you can see a socially redeeming quality very clearly through our case, then we ought to win tonight. And we would like to see that you would cast that vote, for those of you who have your ballots here tonight, for us. If, on the other hand, you believe with the loyal opposition that there are no socially redeeming qualities, then you would side with the opposition. But, of course, that won't happen tonight. We have a few arguments to make our point. And our first main point here is that these live broadcasting of sporting events creates a national conversation. Now think about what's happened recently. We had the Super Bowl. How many people are still kind of thinking about this game that happened last Sunday? It's still on your mind. And there are always discussions about who was the better player, who should have caught what particular play should have been reviewed. And that national conversation that creates a dialogue, it gets people talking about things and focusing on interacting with each other, as opposed to just spending time in their little cubicles, spending time by themselves. We think that's a good thing, that when we spend time talking with each other, that's a good thing to debate. I would use it as another example, the Raiders game. Now, the Raiders, for those of you who are Raiders fans, I know that many of you were having a big discussion after that game in New England. And so that would certainly do it. We'd also like to point out examples of the Olympics. I know there's going to be a lot of discussion about that. Our second argument here is that of cohesiveness, and that is that it creates a sense of patriotism, especially during the time of the Olympics. That when you're in the stadium, you kind of get caught up with the other people who are involved with your team, and that there's a pride that goes on. In fact, there are probably Super Bowl parties that happened this last Sunday. So gathering is kind of an important thing. And we don't think there's enough of that in other types of activities. And the third argument here is that of capitalism. And we can find that there is a lot of ways that people have been making money, that our economy has been boosted by the selling of products and services through things like advertisements and through the vendors. And so we think that there are many ways that this has helped us. Now, in addition to creating this money, this also has created taxes, which will be given to the government that will help support programs for us. And we think for these reasons, for the first time, we beg to propose.
Well, first of all, I'd like to thank the Speaker of the House for coming and adjudicating this round. I'd also like to thank the Parliament for being here today and for the government team for the plan that they have proposed.
Hear, hear!
I'd also like to thank my partner for the speech that she will be given. And finally, I'd like to thank everyone for coming here and listening to us tonight. I know that you guys made a special trip out here just to watch us. Thanks for that. Well, starting tonight, we're talking about this House believes that reality TV has socially worth to society. And we do not believe this is true at all. But before we get into this, we must look at how the government defined reality TV. Now, what do most of you think of when you hear reality TV? Do you think the Olympics? No, I don't think so. I think they're kind of tweaking this word a lot. And so, here. In fact, they are tweaking this so much that this round really isn't being debated like it should be. Now, probably when you hear reality TV, you're probably thinking of Road Rules.
Information.
Just a minute. Let me read off the list. You're probably thinking of Road Rules or Temptation Island or Survivor. Are you thinking of watching ice skating? I don't think so. But that'll take your first point.
You know, Mr. Leader of the Opposition, isn't it true, though, that it was such a narrow definition, we actually decrease our education in this? Why wouldn't we include something that is live and not real TV?
Well, I think what he was trying to say is with a narrow definition, we decrease our education, and that's exactly what he has done. He has given us, the government has given us a narrow definition, and therefore they have decreased the education of this debate round. With that, I'll take your second point.
Well, it would appear to me, sir, that actually you're violating that, because isn't it true that when we're talking about live sporting events, we're talking about a lot of sporting events. We're not just talking about Survivor and real world TV. Isn't that true, sir?
No, not at all, because what we're talking about includes everything. We're talking about all reality TV. We can't just focus on it as the Super Bowl and the Olympics. That's defining it too narrowly. And finally, also in their definitions, they define this house as sports fans, as if sports fans are the only people to watch reality TV. This does not make sense. Now let's take a look at the criteria presented for today's debate round. First of all, they say that we should have transparency. Basically, whichever side is more socially redemptive, then we'll go with that. And so we will accept this criteria on the fact that they will include more reality TV programs and shows such as Survivor and Real World, etc. Okay, going on to their first point, they're saying that sports creates basically a national conversation. But their second point is that it also creates a cohesiveness. And the way we're going to debate this today is we should combine these two together. Take the Raiders game, for instance. Did that bring our nation together? No, it did not at all. Not at all, especially in Oakland. Now, what does bring our nation together? Well, things such as education, that brings our nation together. People thinking alike, people working alike. Things, even events such as 9/11, that brings our nation together. Now, we are not saying we should have more terrorist attacks, but these things are what brings our nation together. Now, what's their third point is basically capitalism, that it creates more money. Well, first of all, my partner will bring up points against capitalism, but also this is really not that significant. Now, going on.
Shame.
We'll get more into this, but there are several problems with going with what they're presenting today, and my partner will bring that up in her speech. But for all this, we beg to propose. Thank you.
Thank you, Speaker of the House, for adjudicating in these very important matters. Thank you, members of Parliament. This is the biggest Parliament we ever get a chance to speak before, so thank you very much. Thank you, loyal opposition. This is great, fun. And thank you, of course, Prime Minister, for kicking some butt. Okay. All right. Okay, with laughter aside, let's look at what the leader of the opposition has said about the Prime Minister has tweaked what we mean by reality TV. Now, in a point of information, we found out that indeed live sports events are real. There's no arguing that. We have to accept those are real. But let's look at this. Is this a red herring? Sometimes people throw things out to draw your attention away from the matter at hand. Well, let's look at Temptation Island, okay? There was a lot of people that were saying, and sighing, and some people saying, here, here. What's going on? There is the national conversation. People talk about it. People know what's going on. There is the cohesiveness issue. People come together. They talk about it. Sometimes people actually get together and watch it. I don't know why, but they do. It's there. There's the cohesiveness. Okay? And the capitalism. There's still the commercials. Okay? There's still people selling their products based on the fact that these television shows are running. So this is really just an attempt to draw your ballot away and give it to them. Because what we're talking about is the reality TV and how it has the socially redeeming qualities. Now, clearly we can see that something that causes us to have national conversation, we can talk about any reality TV issue like the Olympics or Temptation Island with somebody on the other side of the country. It still has the same meaning there. We now have this cohesiveness. In a way, they are very similar, but there's also that fact that they're a little bit different in the fact that people gather for Super Bowl parties and other television shows. They get together and watch in small groups. But at the same time, when they go to work, they're not gathered just to watch the show, but they're talking about it still. So these are two separate issues, and they're both very important. They're both very important to our society. So the final point that the leader of the opposition attacked is he said that capitalism is not necessarily a very good thing. Now, this is, I don't know what he's proposing, but we've gone through bouts of whether communism is bad and stuff like that in our nation, but that capitalism is what our nation has been founded upon. It's been founded upon the ideas of John Locke, and we have survived as a nation for over 200 years. What can be so extremely bad about capitalism? Shame, shame. Okay. Okay. The point is that people like vendors are making money, not Enron, okay? And that small businesses and also other people like sports medics, I don't know how many people out here are interested in doing some kind of rehabilitation, but that's definitely more jobs for people, so that's good for our society. So we can ignore the Enron comment and still see that there is some social redemption in this matter. So, we've got reality TV, the way it's been put before us, and we can clearly see that it has socially redeeming qualities. And for these reasons, we beg to propose the second time. Thank you.
Speaker of the House thanks Mr. Kendall and Mr. John Longo, and directs the Sergeant of the Guards to execute that interloper from the Parliament. Without order. And now, Speaker of the House grants the floor to the lovely Yesenia Arteaga.
All right, I want to thank the Parliament. Hey, think about it. 7 more minutes and you're out of here, right? All right. And as the only female up here, I'm going to represent this House much better. Of course, you see my trusty partner, he's gorgeous and everything, so stop looking at him. And look at these people over here, a little bit older. All right, let's get right into this. Please, we don't want to get blind tonight. All right, let's get right down into this. One thing that the member of government did is that he accepted our definition. He brought the reality world into the program. He says, all right, we're going to bring in reality world. And one of the, we bring this to the points that he brought forward of national conversation and cohesive, it makes no sense. He's saying that this will be good for us and that if we put it in our terminology, he'll be saying basically this house, the sports fans, believes reality TV, both sports and, hold on one moment, and reality TV, which we described it and you and the audience accepted it as being Survivor, Road Rules, Real World, Temptation Island, and gave us their own definition. But if he's only talking about sports fans, what about the rest of us that still watch the shows and don't watch sports? Go ahead, first point of information.
I'm confused here because it sounds to me like my partner was saying that there was actually a connection between things like Survivor and Temptation Island and what we're talking about here. So in other words, the definition we offered then would have been correct. Isn't that true?
It would have not been correct because then what would capitalism include in the real world? Are we paying $10 a night to watch the real world? I'm not. I get it for free. I don't know about you guys. All right. We have brought forward many things where we're saying that sports... One moment, please. We're saying sports is not... Doesn't he look cute standing there? All right. We're saying sports could be a bad thing if we watch TV. Who saw the Cleveland game and saw the refs get it basically booed out with cans? I mean, somebody could have got killed very, very easily. How about soccer, Spain, 2 years ago? 7 people died. What are we saying about this? Is this really bringing us together? I'll take your second point of information.
You mentioned that you get Reality World for free, but in the commercials for Jack's Spicy Chicken Sandwich, you're actually paying a portion of every burger that you buy to those advertising dollars, are you not?
But is it as much as paying for a sweatshirt that cost me $49 just because it says 49ers on it? No, it's not. Another point we want to bring forward is everybody watched the Super Bowl, right? Oh, most of us did. All right, if you didn't, it's okay. The Niners and the Raiders were not in it, so it doesn't matter. How much money do you think was actually, they were saying that it brings forward so much money, but you know how much taxes it was taken out also? You know how much money we're paying by taxes? More money is being in our income, but then again, we're giving so much money more to taxes. This is like totally, what they're saying is wrong. And I think we've shown it very easily. They have changed basically their definition. They've brought forward and agreeing that our definition is better because they brought real reality shows into this. Reality shows which they have not shown that they are bad. I mean, how many seen Road Rules and see people jumping off of cliffs? How many people have heard of people actually trying to jump off of cliffs because they didn't read the thing saying, don't do this if you're not a professional? They're not bringing any of those things forward. That's why I believe the opposition should win this case.
All right. Well, first of all, I'd like to thank everyone for everything. So we'll take care of the thank yous right there. And jumping right into the case, what we're talking about today, I'd like to clarify and bring out just a few of the main points, and so we can hang on to what we are actually voting about today. This round has been, we've talked about a whole bunch of different points, and so I'd like to narrow this down in this speech. Now, first of all, we're going back to the definition, and not to just bury these words and go over them over and over, but we specified in the very first speech that we define this house as more than sports fans. Now, in the government speech, when they came back, they were supposed to rebut that, but they did not. Instead, they included and they talked about
the other shows like Temptation Island and Road Rules. And they basically included that in their speech and tried to show how those shows produce cohesiveness and create a national conversation. Now, at first you might think, oh, okay, that works, but it doesn't, because what they did is they took our definition and then they used it to try to prove their own points. Now, when they use our definition, then that is basically handing the entire debate to us on a silver platter. So on that point, we win the round. Now going on, here. Going on, my partner brought up several problems with sports reality TV, such as like the Cleveland game, where people get too into sports. People are like over into it, and they're so into it that it actually rips people apart. People get hurt, and it does not create a national conversation. It might create a conversation, but it's not a good conversation. It's a negative conversation. And so first of all, we have seen the first point about they took our definition, and finally, the sports games do not create a good national conversation on the whole. Now, finally, talking about capitalism, what exactly are we talking about here? And this is actually a very vague argument, because we can go into a whole political science topic of whether capitalism is good or bad, and we really don't want to do that here today. But what we are saying is that just by watching sports on the TV, this isn't like totally promoting capitalism. There are other ways where people make a whole lot more money. And we don't even want to get into the Enron thing and all that stuff, because that's not what we're here to debate about. We're here to debate whether reality TV is socially worth to society. And as the opposition, we believe that it is not. And for this, we beg to propose. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll ignore that comment. Thanks to everyone tonight. There's a lot that we need to cover, so let me tell you, this is a story about how we're going to win tonight. And there are 4 reasons why we're winning. It's big, it's beautiful, and I'm loving it. First thing we need to talk about is the issue of the sports fans definition. Now, the leader of the opposition wants you to believe that somehow they've blown this definition down. That isn't true. They haven't excluded sports fans. They've just wanted to add other avenues like Survivor and Temptation watchers. That doesn't exclude sports fans, so that definition would still stand. Secondly, I'd say here is that think about what the criteria is. The criteria has to do with transparency. Do you see socially redeeming qualities when you're watching sporting events? The answer to that is yes. And we can enumerate that in these other 3 ways here. The first is that there is this national conversation. Now, the leader of the opposition wants you to believe that having a debate, or what he referred to as negative language, is a bad thing. I would say no, wrong. First of all, there needs to be a debate. Anytime that we have a debate over something, we can discuss and learn more about things that we disagree on. So this censorship idea, or this idea that we don't want to have things that we don't believe in, isn't a good thing. He uses as an example the idea of the refs in Cleveland getting hurt, and that this isn't a way to make cohesion. And I agree that is an example of how we don't want things to happen. But I would say that is atypical. That's not how we tend to spend our times in the stadiums. If anything, we see people unite together. And to make an extension on the stadiums, I would argue that in addition to that, we've seen neighborhoods and cities and even states and other communities express their cohesiveness through gathering and parties and through spending time at these other events. Finally, I'd say here on the idea of capitalism. Now the member of the opposition says, well, she quite frankly put everything as no, wrong. My answer to that is yes, right. They want us to believe that capitalism is a bad thing, but let me tell you, our economy needs a boost right now, and how much money was spent this past weekend alone? A lot. We have just single-handedly in this past weekend boosted our economy, and we need more of that. And through activities like the Olympics, through the Super Bowl, and through other sporting events, we can boost our economy. Again, I beg to propose.
Dr. Solomon and I are very proud of our team. They work hard and they compete well, and I hope they perform well. I hope you enjoyed it tonight. Thank you for coming. That concludes our performance.